As Hashem Yisbarach. Yom Revi, the Parsha Shlach. Tov Shin, Ayin Tes, Yeshiva Tiferes Avigdor. Yesterday, we discussed some of the lack of emunah and bitachon that Klal Yisroel had. And that's a major test for Klal Yisroel. And a person in his lifetime faces these tests. Yesterday we spoke from the Chafetz Chaim why Klal Yisroel fell into this trap. They thought they had a bad past, and they felt Yitzhar got them to think they're not great tzaddikim. Today we want to discuss another type of bitachon. A bitachon in oneself. Bitachon means a person first has to rely on Hashem, knowing that Hashem is watching him, providing for him, doing for him. But a person has to feel good about themselves. You take a look in the Pasuk. It says that when the Meraglim came back and they gave a report, they said, Visham Ra'inu es hanefilim b'nei Anok min hanefilim. Over there, we saw the descendants of the earlier Nephilim. The earlier Nephilim were three giants who produced tremendous families. And vanehi be'einenu kichagovim. It was so great and so big and so large that we imagined ourselves that we felt as if we were grasshoppers next to them. And v'chein hoyinu be'eineihem. And in their eyes also we appeared so tiny, like little grasshoppers, and because of that, they didn't start up with us. You know that? In the Chazal it says, so the Yidden said two things. They said, Vanehi be'einenu kichagovim, that we felt in our eyes like grasshoppers next to these folks. Know what the Chazal say in that? Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu, for your statement that you felt like grasshoppers next to them, vitarti aleim, I was willing to overlook that. But when you said afterwards, v'chein hoyinu be'eineihem, that they viewed us like grasshoppers, who told you that? Who told you that? He says, do you know, did you know how I made them appear, how I made you appear to them? Mi yoimar, who says, Shelo yehiyisem be'eineihem kimalachim, that you weren't in their eyes like malach. This is a very interesting medrash. The Gemara says that they heard the Meraglim saying this. Oh, look at these little grasshoppers. But the Medrash is saying differently. The Medrash is saying that Hashem said, how do you know how they appeared to you? How you appeared to them? Many people are very concerned how they appear in the eyes of others. They're very preoccupied by that. If a person were to think about this many times, what do others think about me? You know what this leads many people to, Hillel? What does this lead people to do? They have paranoia, and they imagine the worst, that most people are thinking about them in very negative terms. I've met people in my life, Bachrim, who thought that others viewed them as nebachs. I met people in my life who thought that other people viewed them as dumb. I met people who thought others thought about them, they were bad people. And the Torah says that a person, Chazal telling us here, don't ever imagine what somebody else thinks about you. Hashem says, based on what do you say that? Did somebody tell you that? Or you just feel like that? Now the emes is, it would be a wonderful avodah if you would tell people how you thought positively about them. Because when people think that you think negatively about them, that breaks them. That weakens their resolve. That weakens their motivation. It's a tremendous psychological assistance to a person to make them feel and make them aware that you don't think of them as in a negative way, and you're actually bring you happiness when you see them. I have encountered hundreds of people in my life who I was be'emes happy to see them. They be'emes were misameach me. And I thought very positively about them. Now, I do thank my grandfather for that. One of the earliest lessons that he taught me was to train yourself that whenever you see somebody, find something about him that's positive. And when you think about him, think Yosef with this positive, Moshe with this positive. And if you tell people that, it makes them feel like $1 million. I'm not talking about lying. I'm talking about everybody has something they could be respected for. I once told you an amazing story about a Talmud that wasn't a superstar, how he turned into a superstar. Because at the end of the year, the Rebbe said one day, going to make a little project. And he gave everybody a piece of paper. And he said, I want you to write something positive about the other Bachrim in this shiur. And everybody wrote something positive about the other people. And this kid turned out to be a superstar. And years later, he came to his Rebbe. And he said, I owe you my life. The Rebbe said, why? He said, over 10 years ago, you made a project in class. And I thought of myself very little. Very little. And what happened was, you made this project. And at the end of the year, the last days of school, mamish, you gave each guy a piece of paper. And on that piece of paper, you had written down what every bacher said positively about him. All his milas. And he put his hand in his pocket, he pulled out his wallet. He said, I never stopped carrying that paper. And I read that paper all the time. I never dreamed that anybody thought of me in such a positive way. And because of this, I steigdeis. I became what I became. Before that, I never dreamed that I had any of those milas. So this is a very important avodah. But another avodah is, till somebody gives you a list about your milas, you have to work on yourself to view yourself as a what your milas are. Now, there are a lot of people who are arrogant and conceited, and they're in total la-la land. They're absolute dummies. They never passed one test in their life, and they tell themselves, I'm the smartest kid in the class. I have to tell you that when I was in grade school, elementary school, I was not the best test taker. I was not studious. I didn't know how to prepare for tests. And you have to know the stuff beforehand to take a test. My problem started from then already. So I really thought that I was not shaykh to any scholastics or intellectual areas. I didn't think that was my domain in life. I didn't have good learning skills. I thought I was street smart. That I always thought I was. I can get around, but I really, truly believed that. And I had a brother who was your proverbial goody two-shoes. He was the proverbial good son, good student, always studying, always head in the books, always preparing, always reviewing. He was a year older than me, and there was no competition. And one day, I'd gotten into some trouble, and my father was talking to me, as he did in many other occasions, and he said to me, when are you going to start learning? I said, Abba, I have to tell you the truth, that I'm really not cut out for learning. I really don't want to disappoint you, but learning is not my thing. I like activity. I'm more of a interested in other things. I like riding bikes. I like playing ball. My father told me a statement, and he said to me, I said, my brother is cut out for that. My father told me, do you know that if you would sit down and pull yourself together and start to learn, you would soar? And I really thought that he was snowing me, making me feel good. You know, everybody tells that to everybody, you know what I mean? And I said, I really don't think so. And he said, I'm telling you, you're wrong. He said, you leave all your competition behind. And I said, tell me, do you really, really mean that? And he said, yes, I do. I sincerely do. And it was when he had given me a punishment for something I did wrong. And the punishment was that I had to learn Parshas Mishpatim with all the Rashis. Parshas Mishpatim is one of the more difficult parshas. It has tremendous amount of halachas. And he told me there's no ifs or buts. You're going to conquer this parsha if your life depended on it. And I had done something bad. And he said, this is the only kapara you're going to get. And I don't remember what motivated me, but I did it. I thought it was an impossible task. But after I had done it, I felt, how did I do it? I remember getting stuck on the first Rashis. Thinking, Shrek, how am I going to do this bag Rashi? Remember Rashi declaring, is this the pshat? Or maybe this the pshat. So what do you mean, this the pshat? Every question was, is this the pshat or this the pshat? Is it machru bezdin or machru atzmai? Is it this and that? Look into this parsha, that parsha. And that's why my father told me this. That I'm telling you, he said, I mean this. I didn't start learning right away. I have to be honest with you. But it made a tremendous ratio on me. And from then on, I always felt that maybe there is hope. That if I ever buckle down and start to learn something, that I will be successful. The Chavetz Chaim writes, when a person loses his emunah in himself, just because you have interests to do other things, but if you're not aware and you lose sight of what your capabilities are, and you're not makir your own value, you think of yourself that when it comes to learning, I'm going to be a grasshopper. Because I might have acted like a grasshopper till now. He said, when that happens, when a person falls in his own eyes, Zok the Chavetz Chaim, and you evaluate yourself less than what you are, so then you think that others think the same thing about you, and you automatically think that you're garnished. And then you think there's no hope for you. One of the hallmarks of Slabotka, and one of the whole ways of motivation for growth in the Talmidim of Slabotka, was that the altar for Slabotka gave over to the Talmidim their greatness, their potential for greatness. And everybody should recognize honestly and seriously what is your potential. Know yourself. And the Alter of Slabotka used to quote a famous Rabbeinu Yoina in Shari Avoida. This was a source of the Slabotka Shita. Rabbeinu Yoina writes, HaPesach HaRishon, the first door is that a person should know, Ha'ish ha'oved, the person who's serving Hashem, Erech Atzmai, he has to know his own value. V'yakir ma'alosoi. He has to know his maila. Umailas havoisav. He has to know the maila of avoisav. V'gadlusam, their greatness. V'chashivusam, their respectability. V'chibosam, and their endearment. Eitzel habayri yisbarach. And that a person has to constantly be mishtadel. He has to work and strengthen himself constantly to focus on that maila and stay in that place and to be mechazik tamid. And he says as follows. It's amazing. Rabbeinu Achosid. He says like this: a person should tell himself, Adam Gadol v'chashiv kamayni. A person who's Gadol v'chashiv kamayni, Moshe. Could you believe that? A Tanya and an Adam Gadol v'chashiv. A person is an Adam Gadol v'chashiv. Like myself, that I have so many milas, toivas, exalted milas. And I come from a wonderful family. I have gewaldige yichus. How am I going to do and engage in such bad behavior? How am I going to sin? Sachi is a descendant of a person who was considered a chassid, a tzaddik, a kaddish from Parsha, and he bears his name. If he would remind himself every single day, this is my namesake. My Zayda was somebody who faced battles of the biggest kind, and he won them. How can I do this Ra'ah HaGedolah in the eyes of Hashem? And therefore, a person has to be mishtadel constantly to attain his value. How many people do I meet? They tell me, I come from a big yichus. Tell me who? They tell me, my grandfather. I know a fellow, I'm going to meet him tomorrow. He has a picture of his grandfather giving a bracha to Rabbi Vadi Yosef. Rabbi Vadi asked him to please give him a bracha. He was a moiridik about chesed, a moiridik about tzedakah. He was a person who carried the achrayas of Klal Yisroel on his shoulders, and he pushed it as a picture. He sent it to me. Of Rabbi Vadi, his grandfather, who was an ish pashit, giving Rabbi Vadi a bracha. That's the v'chashem. I would like that grandchild to emulate his grandfather, to take upon himself and grow to great heights. Some people like to bask in their grandfather's warmth without rising to the occasion. It's like the princes. Sons of kings many times don't emulate their parents and become kings on themselves. They take advantage of the lifestyle. But a person has to understand his chashivus before Hashem. And he has to understand that if Hashem put you in this family, Hashem's telling you, you have the ability to reach. You're shaykh to that. Otherwise, I want to put you in this family. That's what a person has to understand. The famous statement from Reb Tzadok HaKohen in Tzidkas HaTzadik. He says like this: Keshem shetzarech adam, just like a person needs to believe in Hashem, kach, so too, You need afterwards, after you believe in Hashem, to believe in yourself. Ois kuftan dalet. It's amazing. You can believe in yourself. Ratzaloymar. Know what that means to say? Sheyesh laHashem yizbarach esekimoi. Hashem has esekimoi. Is a gentleman from Beitar. Parsha the person. There's a lot of milas. HaKadosh Baruch Hu has an esekimoi. He says you should think v'she'enoi poil bottle. He's not a guy without a job. That he's here today and gone tomorrow. He's not like an animal in the field that after mitzasam is over and gone. You have to believe that you're coming from Mimkar HaChayim. And Hashem Yisbarach is delights and it's mishtasheya when you do His will. When you don't do His will, He's not shepi nachas. But when you're doing His will, Hashem is mamish shepi nachas. Could you imagine how much? That Hashem Yisbarach b'chvoid v'atzm. If I were to tell you right now that the greatest Reb Chaim Kanievsky is mishtashea, is enjoying you, and mamish having you, giving him pleasure. I gave him a report that you're steiging and that you're learning, and his mom, it'll make you feel like $1 million. You say, nah, I don't believe it. Right? Me? You got bigger fish to fry than me. I'm not even sardines for him. Garnished. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu, is mishtasheh mizanik. When you learn Ilchana and you push yourself on a daily basis, and you're misakesh, you're stubborn, and you keep going, can you imagine the simcha that Hashem has with you? I can't imagine. When I look at people who are failing the mission, like to drive cars, like to do this, like to run around, then Hashem says, "No, this is what I put you in the family for." I'll never forget when I began a career of trying to be makar of people. My goal was to make them B'nai Torah. And I remember a couple of Talmidim, I always talked to them, you're going to make it into the top 2% of Fruma Yidden in this city. I should tell them, Cleveland is a choshev city. There's a lot of B'nai Torah, a lot of Rabbanim, a lot of Gdolim, Chashuvim, the city of Torah. I said, I'm going to bring you, my goal is to make you in the top 2 percentile of people. They went around telling it to people. I pumped them up. And one day they came to me and said, people told us that you're snowing us. You're blowing smoke about nose. We're about tshuva, and nothing's going to become of us. I said, you're wrong. You're wrong. They're liars. They're shakranim. They're agents of the Satan and the Sitra Achra. And they said to me, how do you know? Are you a Navi? I said, no. You know how I know? Because Hashem brought you to me. Hashem made that shidduch. And Hashem knows my agenda. Hashem knows what I want to create. And Hashem gave me people like you. If you weren't shaykh to it, what would Hashem set us up for? If my goal was just to make you frum, so then hopefully I could reach that goal if I met a person. Every person I met, I said, what does Hashem want me to do with this person? Some people weren't committed to learning. I said, okay, they don't have a future learning, but at least a future member of Klal Yisrael, Shemer Torah Mitzvahs, that they could be. It was disappointing that I couldn't get him into the learning, but that's how it is. But when I saw somebody was taking the learning, they're breaking themselves in the olive base, I'm thinking, what's going to be from me? And then after a couple of years, they blew everybody out of the water. The bracha that Hashem gave them, the siyata, the shemaya, and there was no one that wasn't impressed. I'll never forget, we were learning the end of the first parak of Ksubas. It's difficult Gemaras over there, Shav Shmaitzes, there's a lot of Timid, Tara, Roiv, all kind of stuff. Kol Kavua, Mechza Mechza, dealing with learning the Shmaitzah was a difficult one. And I had a Kasha and a Tiferes. And the Slobodka Rosh Yeshiva came to raise funds by one of the fellows. And the fellow told him, before we talk about business, could I ask you a Kasha? We will bother with the Tiferes. Not the Gemara, he started going to the Gemara, the Tiferes told him the Kasha. They were talking in, back and forth. Finally, Rosh Yeshiva asked him, which yeshiva did you learn? I never went to yeshiva. No, which yeshiva did you learn? Maybe you didn't learn one of the biggest yeshiva. What did you learn? I went to public school. So, did you learn Ar Sameach? No, I went to the Meta College. I graduated law school. I never did that. Where did you learn how to learn? I was only learning for a few years. Did I have a Rebbe who teaches third? Guy called the Yeshiva could not believe. How do you take him? I said, you see, you made it. See, you made it. That's amazing. There are very few people who the Rosh Yeshiva Slabotik go into them and they could present them a kasha that it's going to be a kasha, he's going to be machshir. The person has to know, says Chavetz Chaim, that when you look at yourself in a negative fashion and you think others look at you negative, that's a terrible thing. But a lot of times we use it as an excuse of why I'm not successful. I want to say, why aren't I successful? People say, why aren't you successful? No, you say, well, you know what I've done, you know what I've seen, you know what I've been exposed to, you know what I've did, you know what I've done. I said, but Hashem didn't take you out yet. Do you think that if you couldn't steig and reach your tafkid, Hashem would keep you in the world? You know what Hashem would do? It wouldn't take him, to flip your switch and say it to the next one. There have been incidences of boys getting sent to the next world. I have seen boys overdose and Hashem flip the switch on them. I have seen boys get into motorcycle accidents or car accidents. In the prime of their life, Hashem terminated their life. You know what Hashem said? There's no hope for you. Your tafkid is not going to be fulfilled. That's Hashem's hanhag in this world. Would have been Sayra murder. Mutav Shiyam Tzak. Kill him when he's 13. Because he's going to end up being a Sharash. If you're around, there's hope. I remember meeting a fellow who was in 60th level of Tum. The worst of the worst. And the fellow, I started making a front. My wife said, what are you wasting your time for? This guy is not for you. He's such a maneuver. He's so fatuma, such a menuaf. He lived for tumah and niyuf. I said, Hashem brought him to me. I didn't find him. Hashem brought him to me in a very strange way. Hashem knows my program. Why didn't Hashem send him to Chabad? He could have gone to Chabad. Could have become a member of good standing. We got a big picture of the Rebbe. And he would have, if he would have steiged into major league steiging, he would have put a few whiskers on his face. And then he would even look like a Lubavitcher. And if he'd be even frummer, he'd put on a hat, make it a teapot. And the guy would mamish be oizgesticken. Finished. I said, Hashem sent it to me. Must have been for a reason. Hashem knows my agenda. When I see somebody, I said, how did you become from? I met somebody in Arizona. I met somebody in Texas. So you know that person didn't have a big schus. Because Hashem's, you can't get more than low level over it. It's not available. The average Kirov place is hoping you won't enter that. That's considered a success. If you'll stop eating pork in the restaurants, they're very proud of you. You won't eat shrimp. Oh, now you're a real Mahadran kind of Jew. You'll keep some modicum of kosher. Doesn't matter. You have to look at that. I look at people, you're in this family, you have the ability. How can you do that? You come from unbelievable. Hashem exposed you. Hashem took you out and exposed you to real Torah, the serious thing. I thank Hashem, put me in a family. My father, my Zayda, said, maybe there is some hope for me. Maybe there is some hope for me. You know, think of that. I remember when I was very young, I was sure I was born in the wrong family. I think my mother was sure that we didn't have a mix-up in that. Sure, said about his Rebbe, you read what he said over there, and that's what I think about it. But me, what happens to me? Hashem's telling you wrong. Don't be a grasshopper in your eyes. Understand, if you're in that family, you have that shaykhs. You have that ability. And anything is excuses. Anything is just putting yourself down and not being machabed yourself, karoi, not honoring yourself properly. So think about it, what your koiches are. Hashem, I told people, Hashem doesn't make mistakes. There's a lot of people that I know said, I told them, if I would have been Hashem, you wouldn't have been born Jewish. I would have, had you been born Episcopalian, maybe a porcupine. I've told other people, I might have put you in the skunk family. But that's what you're good at. That's what you're aiming for. But Hashem knows better than me. And Hashem knows you have potential. You have abilities. So regardless of what you've done, if Hashem didn't lose hope in you yet, and Hashem's still keeping you around, that means there's lots of hope. Let's develop that koyach. Let's make something happen from yourself. Rise above yourself and your behavior and be matzliach.